You can say what you want about Charlie Kirk, but Charlie Kirk understood clarity. He understood that clarity beats the grind every time. And that's why it's time for all of us to denounce your petty hustle and sharpen your mission. If you have a dream project, a dream business, a dream pursuit, just put in the comments, what's your dream project? What's your passion project? In case you don't know, my name is Tijuana Jackson. I'm the people's mentor. Let's get into it. Charlie Kirk did not out-hustle you. Charlie Kirk out-structured you. My aim with this video is to convert your mindset from self-made to mission-made. Everything I'm about to say about Charlie Kirk is available to the public, but ain't nobody talking about it. So spare me with all the conspiracy theories. And please understand that this ain't about left or right. This is about architecture. This video is about infrastructure. This is about understanding that while we out here building lemonade stands, some folks is driving a tractor through their citrus grove. But this video focuses on established facts about how Charlie Kirk structured his organization and what we all need to learn from it. So Charlie Kirk has a nonprofit called Turning Point USA. He established it at a very young age. And that shit went from 78,000 to 85 million in 12 years. That ain't a business trajectory. That's institutional Viagra bars. Now, some might argue that's wide, supreme AC, and you're probably right. But at least there ain't no confusion about what his brand promises to deliver. Can you say that? Can you say that about your shit? And while I'm over here thinking I'm competing in a fair marketplace, trying to build my audience one YouTube video at a time, Charlie Kirk wasn't even playing the same game I was playing. See, I thought that we was all out here hustling, content creators. I thought we was all self-made. Thought the playing field had some semblance of practice makes perfect. Well, it turns out smart work can have less athletic ability and still win the goal on these bitches. Bah! Meanwhile, I'm 56 years old arguing with the algorithm about whether my thumbnail is clickbaity enough, and this man had billionaires on speed dial before he could legally rent a car. Let me break it down. I really want to break down what Charlie Kirk built, because this is where the education starts. He ain't just built a media company. He built a 501c3 nonprofit that functions as a media company, which means every dollar that came in wasn't taxed like it would be for my LLC. Every major donor who cut a check got to write that off. The Bradley Impact Fund alone put like 23.6 million since 2014. Bernie Marcus, the Home Depot, Foster Freeze, Richard Ewing. These ain't small-time investors. These is people who decided this young man's voice was important enough to add infrastructure. Translation: imagine your parents not just believing in your lemonade stand, but building you a whole factory in Mexico, hired bilingual employees, and set up distribution deals with Walmart and shit. Except these wasn't his parents. These is billionaires who never met him until he had a plan that aligned with their goal. Now here's the part that had me standing in my kitchen, in my drawers at 2 a.m. with my laptop open, having a full existential crisis. They didn't just fund him because they liked his ideas. They funded him because his voice moved markets, political markets, cultural markets, actual markets. His mission was so pronounced, so clear, so specific that people who didn't even need his product still invested in his platform, still contributed to his platform. And I'm sitting there at 2 a.m. with a Red Bull from 2023 wondering if I should boost a post for $12. Oh, don't worry. This is all going to tie right back to our psychological development. But Charlie Kirk was pulling $400,000 a year in salary from Turning Point USA, but that wasn't even his main income. Podcasts, that was his primary revenue stream. Speaking fees, $10,000 a pop. Book deals, merchandise investment portfolio. You see what happened there? The not-for-profit gave him the platform, the credibility, the infrastructure, but then he built a personal brand ecosystem around that institutional backing. You feel me? He built an empire off of a grant. I'm out here trying to catch up on the last few episodes of Empire Buzz. Most of us are out here trying to do this in reverse. We trying to build a personal brand first and hope somebody notice. Charlie Kirk had the Home Depot co-founder writing checks before most of us knew his name. That's not hustle. That's institutional adoption. Translation: it's like showing up to a pickup basketball game and realizing that the other team got LeBron personal trainer, a nutritionist, and a Nike sponsorship. You showed up to play some ball and realized you about to get ran through by a whole fucking dynasty. Buzz. And before anybody get it twisted, I'm not saying that Mr. Kirk didn't work. I'm saying he worked with resources most of us can't even imagine accessing. There's a difference between grinding and grinding with an $8 million cushion from one foundation. So here's what I've been guilty of. And I know I'm not alone. I've been operating like my competition is other solopreneurs. Like I'm competing with people who is also editing their own videos at midnight. Also trying to figure out how to boost a post for $20. Also wondering if they should invest in that webinar software or just keep using Zoom. Real talk. I spent like 45 minutes last week trying to decide if I should go live on Zoom or just use StreamYard instead. Like that was the decision that would make or break my empire. Meanwhile, entities like Turning Point USA have professional fundraisers. Companies like Cloverstone Ventures and American Philanthropic, who raised $42 million and kept $3 million as their fee. They netted $39 million just from professional fundraising operations. They got people whose whole job is to ask for money professionally. Little golf tournament here, little burning cross auction over here, little raffle where you can win access to a noose tying masterclass. Meanwhile, my fundraising strategy is posting link in bio and praying somebody's card got room on it. They have entire departments. They have endowments. 64.3 million sitting in the Turning Point endowment as of 2024. Money designated for their 50 to 100-year plan. I'm over here with a 5-year plan written on a Google Doc. And they got centennial funding strategies. They planning for their great-great-grandkids, and I'm planning for the weekend bars. Meanwhile, my endowment is whatever's left in my checking account after I pay the electric bill. This is why this concept of self-made, that term self-made, is killing us. This is the conversation we're not having enough. The mythology of self-made entrepreneur is preventing us from understanding the actual game being played. Charlie Kirk started Turning Point USA at 18. He was 18 years old. And within months, he connected with Foster Fries at the Republican National Convention. That's not just hustle. That's access. That's being in rooms most 18-year-olds don't even know exist. That's having a mentor like Bill Montgomery, a retired marketing entrepreneur who handled all the paperwork, all the 501c3 filings, all the structural work while Kirk focused on his message. Now, how many of us had that? How many of us out here trying to be the visionary and the accountant and the lawyer and the marketer and the content creator and the customer service department? And I'm not sitting here naive to the fact that Charlie was plugged in like a ventilator patient with premium insurance. But the point is, we're not competing against people. We out here competing against infrastructures. I'm out here being the CEO, the CFO, the janitor, and the person who responds to my own emails, pretending to be my assistant. Now, here's the part that actually changed my perspective, and this is why I'm not complaining. I'm just sucking up game. What if we stopped pretending that we're in the same league and started asking, what can I actually learn from this model? Charlie Kirk's mission was crystal clear. Conservative values pushed on college campuses, period. That's it. It's not political commentary or thought leadership or some vague change in minds nonsense. Specific and tactical and measurable. You can either support that mission or not, but you damn sure knew what you were supporting when you did. How clear is your mission? How clear is your mission? If someone asks you right now what you're building and why it matters, could you say it in one sentence that would make somebody reach for their wallet, not to buy your product, but to fund your voice? I'm going to repeat that. If someone asks you right now what you are building and why it matters, could you say it in one sentence in a way that would make somebody reach for their wallet, not to buy your product, but to fund your voice? Look, dog, now would be a good time to hit the like button if you like something. And if you're motivated as hell, hit that notification bell. And if y'all really trying to see this channel grow, y'all need to share this with your folks. Boss, here's what studying the Charlie Kirk model taught me. Stripped of all the political noise. I want y'all to take notes here, because you probably ain't trying to fucks with the replay. Number one, stop competing in markets that you can't win in. If there's an institutionally backed entity in your space, you're not going to out-resource them. You going to out-mission them, out-authenticity them, out-community them. You're going to find angles that they too big to see. Number two, your mission needs to be fundable, not just buyable. Boss, there's people who don't need your course. They don't need your product. They don't need your service, but they believe in your mission. They believe your voice matters. Are you creating opportunities for those people to support you? No. Kirk didn't just sell tickets to America Fest. He built a donor network of 500,000 people who believed in the mission enough to give money even when they wasn't getting a direct product. That's the difference between having customers and having believers. Number three, consider the nonprofit route. If your work is genuinely mission-driven, look, if you in my online community, it should be. Your work should be mission-driven. And I'm serious. If what you're doing has social impact, educational value, or advances a specific cause, a 501c3 might be more powerful than an LLC. You can accept donations that are tax deductible for your donors. You can apply for grants. You can build endowments. In case you're taking the big words as disrespect, an endowment is like having a goose that lays golden eggs. You never kill the goose, you just collect the eggs every month. So if somebody gives you a substantial donation, you invest that money, and if it earns 5% a year, that's 5% interest you can spend annually at the best possible tax rate ever, forever, while that original money just sits there making more money. That's perpetual funding, baby. That's generational wealth for your mission. That's an endowment. You're not taxed on the revenue in the same way. That's a completely different game. And before you say, but nonprofits don't pay well, Charlie Kirk put $400,000 from his in compensation. The average salary for Turning Point USA was about $46,000, which, well, that ain't spectacular, but his leadership got paid. And you can structure yours intelligently. Number four, build affiliated entities. Turning Point USA had Turning Point Action, which was a 501c4, which is more like a political arm. And then Turning Point Endowment, the Turning Point Endowment was with TP USA Faith, and a for-profit merchandise operation. So he had an investment operation, he had his media operation, he had his funding operation. This dude had multiple revenue streams, all from one message, different legal protections and strategic flexibility. This is not the same as the car wash that sells donuts and Chinese food and offers to do your taxes. This is leveraging one message, one clear message, and multiple streams of revenue that don't require excessive manual labor. It's different. And that's how Kirk been doing since 18. So most solopreneurs have one LLC doing everything. That's like expecting your car to be a boat and a plane and a side chick. Look, sometimes you need different vehicles for different terrain. But here's where it gets real. And this is where some of y'all gonna squirm. One thing I learned studying this Charlie Kirk business model, don't judge the money, judge the character. I used to think taking money from big donors meant you were compromised. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Well, that depends on your character and your mission and your mission's boundaries. But what I know for sure is that not understanding where funding comes from is keeping us naive about how movements are built. Movements. Turning Point USA received funding from conservative mega donors, foundations with specific ideological goals, and dark money vehicles like Donors Trust that hide the original donors' identities. That's legal. That's how institutional funding works. And whether you agree with the politics or not, understanding that mechanism is crucial, because here's the thing. There are progressive equivalents doing the exact same thing on the other side. It's donor networks, foundations, and institutional back and flowing everywhere. They playing chess with unlimited pieces. We out here playing checkers with bottle caps. The game is being played above our heads like Frisbee while we mentally in the joint hoping to catch a kite. Boss, if you are building something that challenges power structure, if it challenges conventional wisdom, or if it challenges the status quo, you need to understand that you ain't just competing with other content creators. You're competing with funded operations that have strategic communication teams and quarterly goals and board meetings. At best, I'm having strategy sessions with myself in the shower. Now, let me give you a practical example of how mission clarity actually works. By the way, Don B, thank you for putting money on the brother's books. Not expected, but always appreciated, my brother. Let me give y'all a practical example of how mission clarity works, because this is the most actionable part of the whole breakdown, right? So just imagine that you run a hair salon, standard business model. You cut hair, you get paid, you compete on quality and price and location, and that's fine. You make a living. But what if your actual mission was eliminating toxic chemicals in hair products that disproportionately affected Black women and children? That's not just a hair salon no more. Now you have a cause. Now people who don't even live in your city might donate to your work. Now you might qualify for health-related grants. Now you might build partnerships with medical researchers or advocacy groups. Now you building something that could become a nonprofit arm with an affiliated for-profit salon that funds the advocacy work. That's mission clarity that creates funding pathways beyond transactions. Same thing applies if you were a fitness trainer whose real mission is preventing childhood obesity in underserved communities, or a financial educator whose mission is closing the racial wealth gap, or a content creator whose mission is preserving oral histories from aging veterans. The product is the transaction. The mission is the movement. The movements get funded differently than products. You selling widgets, they selling futures. You got customers, they got congregations. Pause. Here's what keeps me up at night. Turning Point USA's growth represents a market validation that most solopreneurs never think about. When an organization goes from 78,000 to 85 million in 12 years, what that actually means is that there's $85 million worth of demand for that specific message, delivered in that specific way to that specific audience. The market didn't just speak, it gave a whole TED talk with the PowerPoint slides and the whole standing ovation. Buzz. In other words, the market spoke with dollars. How much demand exists for your mission? Not your product, your mission. Not what you're selling, what you stand for. If you can identify that gap, if you can articulate that mission clearly enough, you might discover there are people willing to fund your voice who would never buy your course. There might be foundations aligned with your work who could provide grant money. There might be angel investors who believe in your cause enough to back you without expecting an immediate ROI. Well, you will never access any of that if you stuck thinking like a solopreneur selling digital products for $47 on a landing page. And here's the political reality that we are ignoring, and we really need to address this. While we out here battling over left versus right, both sides is taking money from entities that have agendas that we don't fully understand. That's just reality. Charlie Kirk's organization thrived in that ecosystem. He built relationships with conservative funders who saw value in youth outreach. He created a model that made donating to his cause attractive for tax purposes, ideological purposes, and strategic purposes. I am not here to ask you to replicate his politics. I'm asking you to understand his architecture, because somewhere out there, there are people that can align themselves with your mission if you just made it clear enough, pronounced enough, and structured in a way that made supporting you logical. So here's my full-blown awakening, the thing that I'm processing in real time. I've been thinking from a place of scarcity. I've been thinking, if I can just get 1,000 true students paying me X amount of dollars, I'll be making bank. That's the solopreneur's dream. But Charlie Kirk proved there's another model. 500,000 donors giving varying amounts, major foundations contributing millions, events generating revenue, podcasts creating income, books adding to the pile, speaking fees stacking up, and nonprofit structure making all of it more tax efficient. That's not a solopreneur's model right there, y'all. That's an institutional model built around a personal brand. And the question I'm asking myself now is, am I limiting my impact by thinking too small about the structure? So how do we actually apply this without becoming whoever you uncomfortable becoming? So what do you do with this information? Step one, you got to get brutally clear on your mission. Not your product, your mission. What change are you trying to create in the world? This is what my platform is all about. In case you don't know, my name is Tijuana Jackson. I'm the people's mentor. I help people take their passion project from back burner to launch in like 90 days or less. In fact, I'm a living, breathing passion project right here, right now. So what do you do with this information? And I said, step one is to get brutally clear about your mission, not your product, your mission. What changes are you trying to create in the world? Who benefits? Why does it matter? Can you say it in one sentence that would make someone who doesn't need your product still want to support your work? And let me be clear. I want to be crystal clear. This ain't no small feat. This requires you to get clear on what you've experienced, what you've learned, what you value, and the mission you are willing to commit your life to. I want to be clear about something. I didn't come on here to be a business coach. That's not what I do. Here's a sad fact. Most people in the world have a dream project. Most people in the world have a passion project. Most passion projects remain on the back burner, never get realized. Meaning most people never get to live their dreams. And by most, I mean 92%. And I'm a firm believer that the reason we never get to realize those dreams is because most of us don't realize we're not chasing purpose, we're chasing status. And as a result of chasing status, and I don't mean status like Mercedes-Benz status. No, we're doing what we think makes us honorable, what makes us good, what makes us look successful, because we are completely disconnected from the pain we suffered. And we go out there and we try to teach, but let me give all of y'all some clarity real quick. You don't preach from the crucifixion, you preach from the resurrection. Buzz. You want to get some more of this coaching? Links is in the description. Step 2, research if your mission qualifies for nonprofit status. If you are genuinely trying to create educational impact, social change, or advance charitable cause, look into this 501c3 route. Consult with a lawyer who specializes in nonprofit formation. You need to understand the trade-offs and requirements. Step 3, create a funding page. It ain't about selling. Just create a support the mission page where people can contribute $5, $10, $15, $20, $100, $1,000 just because they believe in what you're doing. Test if that demand exists before you build a whole nonprofit structure. I've had folks donate $2,500 to my Patreon, and all they said was keep doing what you're doing. Had another dude contribute $1,000 on my website, and his message was, you saving lives, bro. I raised $211,000 to make the Tijuana Jackson movie. So I know it's doable. Step 4, study the foundations and donors in your space. Who funds work adjacent to yours? What do they care about? How do you get on their radar? This ain't about selling out. It's about understanding the landscape. You don't have to compromise your values to understand how money moves. That's like refusing to learn refusing to learn the roads because you don't like traffic. Step 5, build your personal brand alongside your institutional brand. Charlie Kirk had Charlie Kirk Show separate from Turning Point USA's revenue. Multiple income streams, multiple entities, strategic separation that created resilience. It was a big funnel. I'm talking about not putting all your eggs in one basket, but having one specific message. And here's the part where I need to be real about something. Access to money doesn't make you good or bad. It makes you funded. What you do with that funding, how you treat people, what values you actually operate from, that's character. And character is the only thing that determines whether your success helps or harms. Buzz. Charlie Kirk built an $85 million operation with a lot of philosophies that I don't think I agree with. But whether you agree with how he used that platform is a separate question from whether you can learn from the model he built. I'm not telling you to replicate his message. I'm telling you to understand his machinery. Because right now, a lot of us with good intentions, strong missions, and valuable voices is staying small because we don't understand that there are other ways to build. We think entrepreneurship means grinding alone until we make it. We think success means doing it all ourselves. Meanwhile, it's people with missions no more important than yours accessing institutional support because they understood the game being played. Bars. The bottom line, I started this deep dive thinking I was going to find some secret marketing tactic or content strategy, and what I found instead was a completely different approach to building mission-driven work. Bars. Nicer, I appreciate the contribution. This is one of my OGs up here. Nicer, one of my OGs. Turning Point USA isn't a business. It's a movement infrastructure with business components. It's a nonprofit with for-profit arms. It's a personal brand with institutional backing. It's a donor network with product revenue. It's a media empire with advocacy missions. And whether you like what it stands for or not, the architecture is worth studying. Because if you've got a mission that matters, If you're trying to change the world, if you're trying to create change, if you're trying to educate communities, if you're trying to shift narratives or build something that outlives you, you might be approaching the whole thing wrong. You might need to stop thinking like a solopreneur and start thinking like a mission architect. You might need to stop competing for market share and start building movements that attract funding. You might need to admit that self-made is a myth that's keeping you from accessing resources that already exist for people doing the work that matters. The money been there. We just been standing outside the building thinking it was a museum when it's actually a bank bars. So here's what I'm asking you to sit with. What if the hustle you've been sold is designed to keep you small? What if there are infrastructure models you've never considered because they seemed too big or not for people like us? And what if the reason you're struggling isn't your work ethic, your content quality, or your ideas, but your fundamental misunderstanding of how mission-driven work gets resourced in America? That's the uncomfortable truth I'm wrestling with. And that's the teaching moment I needed to share. Because we can keep pretending that we all playing the same game, or we can start understanding that the actual boards being played on and decide which board we want to play on ourselves. It's your move. Tijuana Jackson. Still learning. Still teaching. Still uncomfortable with how much I don't know. Boss. My name is Tijuana Jackson, and I help people launch their passion projects by helping them become clear about the purpose and the mission behind the project. Because once you got purpose, you don't need discipline. Once you got purpose, you don't need willpower. Purpose becomes the driving force. And my dream, my online community, what we out here trying to do is we trying to put soldiers into the world that actually bring about change. So everybody can't get in, but if you'd like to apply, link is in the description. Anything I talk about will always boil down to the psychological makeup, will always boil down to psychological resolve. I ain't here to do nothing else. Ain't nobody else talking about purpose and delivering messages and delivering a mission, addressing the issues that I address. Nobody is saying, oh, I'm not out here telling you, oh, you got to go through all these, jump through all these hoops and have all this discipline. No, dog. What I'm trying to tell you is that you have to understand that you've been through shit. But the way that we've been raised is we go through shit. And then we end up on the hamster wheel and we never get a minute to pause and assess what we've been through. So we normalize this mediocrity. We normalize this internal suffering. And we become content with it, and we pass that behavioral pattern down to our children. And then we don't realize why we feel so used and empty at a certain point in life. Well, it's because most of y'all have no clue whatsoever that you've suffered trauma, that you were raised in dysfunction, that you were mistreated and neglected, that you are unresolved and angry. You don't know that you are. And a lot of it is because of your upbringing, because of your childhood. And as a result of never resolving it, you are easily triggered, easily controlled. And most of you are walking around heavily invested in what I call, in my online community, perceived pain. Not personal pain, perceived pain. What they tell you should be angry about. What they tell you should be suffering about. Not what actually reflects what you've been through. But what I teach is, hey, if you want to become effective in this world, if you want to make your mess your message, let's sit down and understand your pain. Let's sit down and understand what you survived, the trauma you've endured, the genius it has made you, your ability to navigate rooms where saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing could result in violence, immediate violence. You had a brain since a child who knew how to see, you could spot it coming miles away. You had the personality, you developed the personality to survive that. But that's not the real you. That's the survival version of you, and that's okay too. What I'm trying to help people understand is when you begin to understand the trauma you've been through, how it has shaped your outlook, you begin to understand the emotional and psychological limitations of the people who raised you, and the fact that some of them were clinically undiagnosed with mental health disorders, you begin to understand the shit that you're normalizing ain't normal at all. And it needs to be addressed. And you want to talk about generational curses? Well, no, the generational curse is mental health disorders undiagnosed. And yet, everybody that I'm talking to here, I bet not even 10% of you have ever sat down and had a psychological assessment, a psychiatric assessment. So it's not that you got to get medicated, you just got to get dedicated. A shift in diet, a shift in environment. All of these things can help. But if you lack that awareness, you can't even tell your partner when you blow up or get extra volatile in an argument or put too much on some shit. You can't even turn there and say, hey, you know what? That was my ADHD. I was off my diet. I didn't sleep much. And I just that is the kind of ownership that builds bonds. That's the kind of ownership that makes people have faith in you. And that's also the type of self-awareness that allows you to build a blueprint for how to manage all the shit you've been through. And so what ends up happening is you begin to identify your actual pain. Because see, most people think that pain, there's this huge misconception about pain. You have, let me explain something. There's personal pain, there's perceived pain, right? And when you're wrapped up in perceived pain, you become parts of communities that are often detrimental to your development. I ain't gonna say no names, and I ain't gonna call out no pill poppers. I'm just gonna say some of these communities end up being a detriment to your development. And contrary to popular belief, it took me 50 years to learn that community is a verb. It's a verb. What does that mean? It means it ain't a person, ain't a place, or a thing. It ain't none of them. What community is actually working on the things that matter to you and yours. Community is working on the things that actually matter to you and yours. And whoever, whatever you find in that space, that's your actual community. That's your actual community. Okay? Pause. Now, when you get wrapped up in perceived pain, you neglect personal pain. And you continue on this hamster wheel of thinking you're broken, when in truth you ain't nothing but a puzzle, trying to fill spaces with status symbols instead of the right pieces. It's that simple. But when you begin to understand you and you begin to develop a blueprint of how to moderate you and how to deal with your challenges and how to heal your emotion and how to put down all this negative shit you've been carrying and still thrive amidst everything you've been through, nigga, that's legacy. What do we call legacy in my online community? For all my students who's in this live stream right now, tell them, what is legacy? It's leaving behind the blueprint to a lifestyle that others might aspire to. Bah! You can identify people who've been through the same shit you've been through. You can provide them with this blueprint, then they can do half the suffering that you did, a third of the suffering that you did. So when you hear me talking about mission and you hear me talking about Charlie Kirk's business model, what I'm trying to do is to get people to learn the difference between trying to preach. Motherfucker came to me, I got a dude in my community, in my online community, right? Couldn't write a page. He a writer. He a writer. He ain't wrote a page in years. He's stuck. I got these mental blocks. I don't know, I'm stuck. I was like, well, dog, you know what the problem is, huh? He said, what? I said, well, you haven't identified what you've been through, yet you trying to share the story. You still in it. It's very difficult to pull deep insights in the middle of a fight. It's after the fight that you study the fight and realize, oh shit, damn, I don't know why I didn't load when I slipped right there. I could have took that. If I had loaded in that slip, I'd have ended the fight with a body shot. You can't preach from the crucifixion. You preach from the resurrection. He's 700 pages deep right now, just in case you was wondering how much progress he made. Well, 687 pages deep to be exact. Book's coming along nicely. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why I thought that this business model that I spoke about today was so important. Because my goal, my online community, and the reason it is so closed is because I'm trying to get people in there who actually are willing to suffer through those few uncomfortable moments and really understand what they've been through and assess their pain so that they can then convert that into that passion project, go out there and really bring about some fucking change. Because private intervention, meaning you and me, we the only ones that's going to do it. Us. So we need to get to work. And that's the importance. That's what's actually on the line. That's the importance of understanding what you've been through. This is not about villainizing your parents, but they had emotional and psychological limitations. And those emotional and psychological limitations influence the way we perceive the world. And if we are not careful, if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to truthfully evaluate those things, we end up repeating the same cycles in different circumstances, more tragic circumstances. You feel me? So that's why this whole video about this business model was so important to me. Because at the end of the day, it's about putting out the purest message, the most succinct, clearest, purest, most helpful message. And for what I do, it has a lot to do with purpose. And that's where your passion project comes into play. If you want to get more of this game, if you're trying to fuck with me, links is in the description. But dog, I've been doing this for 15 fucking years. Dog, in fact, I'm going to do something I've never done on YouTube. Y'all got a second? Y'all got a second for me to break character? Y'all got a second? Here, let me do something I ain't never done on YouTube. Let me tell y'all something. If I could stop doing this shit, and just do acting and directing and writing, which I love, I would stop doing this shit. But I can't. I've been 15 years on this channel. I can't. I'm going to tell you why I can't. Because I identified everything that I'm telling you, everything that I preach in every video, everything that we work on in my online community, I discovered in real time, real life. My upbringing, my experiences, the shit that I've been through in my life, dog, I swear on God, I don't wish it on nobody. And if anybody ever thought to put my toddler through what I went through as a toddler, let's just say this, I would have to say some really incriminating shit. My point being, I have learned that all the shit that they've been selling us, all the shit that we subscribe to pulls us further and further and further away from purpose. Once you have purpose, I don't know. I don't have no other excuse. Oh God, I have no excuse. I don't know why I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning other than purpose, other than I'm so excited to do this. That's it. I have a trainer. He's an old trainer. Used to be my trainer. His name's Kirk Neisel. And he'd be like, why do we have to train at 5:30? My trainer, train at 5:30 in the morning, dog. Why would you do that? When we was living in California. Purpose, though. Purpose. Any movie you've ever seen me in, any movie. By the way, is it Akiba? Akiba, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Like I said, guys, it is not expected. My man said, Violet said, you look different without the glasses. You got jokes. My point being, this sense of purpose, this concept of purpose has trumped any discipline I've ever had. Any movie you've ever seen me in, I leave that movie and came home and did Tijuana Jackson. Name a movie. When I finished the movie, I came home and did Tijuana Jackson. Sometimes we would do night shoots on like Think Like a Man, and then I'd leave that movie at night, come to my office and do Tijuana Jackson. Before you could even live stream on YouTube, I was live streaming on Justin TV as Tijuana Jackson. You can go back and look. My second episode of Tijuana Jackson live streaming, you can go back and see a New York Times article on Tijuana Jackson. Full page article because a woman called in talking about being essayed to Tijuana Jackson. And I just stayed in character as I communicated with her. You understand that? This is purpose. I can't stop doing this. So people go, well, why why do you do it with, why do you got to have the teeth in? Well, why can't you got the tooth? Well, there's a couple of reasons. If you watch my last video on propaganda, you would know that if I did that as Romany Malco, I'd be a canceled actor yesterday. That's just a fact. But not only that, the character allows me to hide behind what's called a comedic veil. So anytime somebody tries to persecute me on what's being said, I just be like, oh, I was joking. Them is all jokes. Tijuana Jackson. Look at the track record. That's one reason. The other reason is because the people that I am most passionate about helping, the people that I'm most passionate about reaching, they don't know that they've had trauma. They don't know that they were raised in dysfunction. They don't know that they have emotional baggage. If I approach them saying, yo, let's have this conversation about these things, they'll exclude themselves from the conversation. But if I say, yeah, my stripper friend found this study, if I got the teeth in and I say some, I do some shit like, you know what, my stripper friend, man, she found this study from the University of Michigan that said whoopie whoop, they'd be like, this dude is off. This dude is kind of intense. Is this nigga real? What? Oh, wait, that sounds like me. Oh, shit, that hit different. And I'd be having grown men tearing up, laughing and crying. And that's how I get them. That's how I hook them. And like I said, it took me 15 years to figure out this model, to figure out how to get to the people that I want, that I'm passionate about reaching. Look, let me not let this go by. I think his boy twin won. I just want to say thank you for putting money on the book. He said, we love you and your words are food to the soul. This is priceless. I watched a lot of your stuff bootleg. So this is giving back. That's mad funny. Remind me of the time I went to go visit my aunt in the Caribbean, and like to show respect, she to show support, she wanted to take me to go buy my movie. And the mad funny shit was she was buying a bootleg. I was like, that's not really support, auntie. That's really support. But let's talk about this. Don JB, he said, I think his biggest draw for all that funding was how usable his message was for the right. There's a reason the left doesn't have a Joe Rogan. Hey, I don't want to get into the politics of it. And I do know that there's a lot of truth to a lot of that. But I'm talking about you and me in our backyards. We need to focus on mastering our message so that it's crystal clear enough that the people closest to us can support our mission, not just buy our product, but fund our mission. I think that's important. Vital Vicious, thank you for the contribution. He said, been following TJ for years. Hey, that means the world, family. I can't tell you how big of a deal that is for me, man. I'm extremely grateful you putting money on a brother books too. You heard me? Oh, the Doritos and the Mango Snapple from Aqaba. If you've never seen my Mango Snapple video, it's a shadow banned video on YouTube. You literally have to type in Tijuana Jackson Mango Snapple for it to come up. They demonetized the video, everything, but I left it up. Check that video out when you get a chance. It's like 13 years old. You cracked me up with that one. Big thanks to Boy Twin. Melchizedek, I think I got that. Melchizedek. We love you, and your words are food to the soul. This is priceless. I watch a lot of your stuff bootleg, so this is giving back. All gratitude. And Jeff, salute to you. First time catching a live, and the message was right on time. Boss, yeah, for real, y'all. Look, man, fuck this playing small. Shit, we really have to, solopreneur, do it all, we really have to start actually involving ourselves in ways that optimize our message. And most of us we don't follow through. We don't follow through on what we're doing because it's not aligned with our purpose. And again, it's because of the fact that we don't have a real assessment, understanding of our pain. But the minute you realize that that dude has been through what you've been through, you empathize with that brother. Well, what if you could empathize with that brother and also provide that brother with a blueprint to healing faster than you had to going through less than you had to finding the resources that you have to find on your own? That's the mission. That's purpose. That's what playing it forward really looks like. You're going to either live facing your fears or die tasting your tears. Bars. I will see some of y'all either in my free coaching, link is in the description, or I'll catch y'all in my online community. But either way, my name is Tijuana Jackson, the people's mentor. I help people put purpose behind their passion projects, then you don't need discipline no more. Get you launched in 90 days. If you want to catch one of my free coaching, links is in the description. You want to join my online community, link is also in the description.